Hello world, my name is Tim Ruswick, and you are not an aspiring developer. You know what pisses me off? You know what grinds my gears? When people say, I'm an aspiring game developer, aspiring writer, aspiring graphic designer. But you know what? I click on their profile, and they've posted a bunch of pictures of their graphic design. They've released a few novellas. They have released Game Jam games on itch, but they don't think Game Jam games count. So they call themselves aspiring. And I feel like that is insulting yourself. You are saying that you're not a real game dev, which if you saw my 5 lies that we tell ourselves as game devs, that's one of them. That's one of them. I'm not a real game dev. And I think it's very toxic to tell that to yourself. And here's why. Because when you say things like that, I'm an aspiring game dev. There's two parts to that. One is what you're communicating to others, and the other is what you're communicating to yourself, right? So let's start with what you're communicating to others. When you say you're an aspiring game dev, what you're telling the whole world is that you are not quite there yet. You don't do the thing to your greatest ability. That thing is not a primary focus for you. It's a side thing. Right. And now, granted, it may actually be a side thing. You may have a full-time job. You may have a family and kids, and you gotta work on your games 1 hour a day or whatever. But I think it sends the wrong message. Just because you have limited time doesn't mean that the thing is not a primary focus in your life. It can be, right? Like, it can be a thing. And if you want people to take you seriously in any industry, you need to really think about the message you're projecting out to people, right? I used to run a marketing company. Messaging, the act of what you write and what you deliver to the world, is important, right? I used to pay people very large amounts of money to come in and consult on messaging, right? Because it's so important. And when you say you're an aspiring game dev, a lot of times what I get anyway is that, okay, this person wants me to know they make games, but they want me to know that their games aren't very good, or it's not their main thing, or they're not great at it yet. But I feel like all that does is just discount what they're learning and what they're building, and it actually makes me take their games less seriously. You know, like, it makes me, honestly, I think not think less of them, but like, it brings my expectations down, which I think a lot of people don't realize, that expectations set the stage for how you experience something, right? Like, if I show my friend my game and I say, listen, it's really buggy, the art is placeholder, it's a piece of shit, it's horrible, and I only tried to make it for like 4 hours, so it's like, it's really bad, okay? It's really, really bad. Here, play it. What I'm doing is I'm priming that person to experience exactly what I said it was, right? So maybe they'll laugh about it or whatever, say, yeah, it's really bad, right? But you brought that about by speaking it into existence, right? You gave them the lens with which they use to look at your thing. An aspiring game developer does the same thing. It says, hey, don't take me serious. So everything that I see from that point on is like, they don't want me to take them serious. They're not serious about it yet. Why should I take them serious? And that's a problem, right? So the second thing is what you're saying to yourself. And I think this is the more important one, to be honest, because a good PR company can clean you up on the internet, no problem, right? Changing messaging, changing your branding, changing how you say, it's not that complicated. It can take time, but it's not that complicated. Changing what's in here and how you think about you and how you identify as, or what you identify as, is really, really important. And if you are telling yourself that you're an aspiring game dev. You're an aspiring writer. You're an aspiring musician. What you're saying is you're not a real insert title here. You're not a real game dev. You're not a real musician. Those guys are real. You're not. You're not. You aspire to be them. You want to be them, but you're not them yet. Right? That's imposter syndrome. There's a word for it. It plagues us all. I think we all got a piece of us that wonders, at least if you don't have like some crazy disorder where you're, God complex, something like that. I think everybody wonders like, oh, they're going to find out I'm an imposter, right? They're going to find out I'm not like them. I didn't go to school to learn the thing. I don't have the network of people and all the, people that know what they're doing. I just am dude stumbling through my thing. I put a bunch of stuff together and like, they're going to find out that I don't really know what I'm doing. Athletes feel that, professional artists, musicians, actors, all kinds of people, they feel that it's a real thing. But when you say you're an aspiring game dev, you're reinforcing that. So it's no longer just a thing that you're dealing with. It's being reinforced by your title that you gave to yourself, right? And like we talked about, the titles can influence the identity. Just like you can say, you can give someone else the lens with which to see your thing, you can give yourself the lens with which you see yourself. And that's what an identity is. If you see yourself as a programmer, right? A lot of times you can see yourself as bad at art because you're not an artist. You're a programmer. Programmers are not good at art. And that kind of identity thinking, keeping yourself in this little box, can hurt your performance in those other areas. I'm a solo game dev. That in itself is a title, right? On one hand, it's helped me because like getting away from the programmer identity has helped me like, oh, maybe I'm good at art. Maybe I can make some decent art, right? Like maybe I can try my hand at sound effects. I can do all these things. On the other hand, it's kind of hurt me because there's been some opportunities I've had for collaborations and I'm like, no, I'm a solo game dev. Why would I collaborate? I'm a solo game dev, right? And it happened without me thinking about it. It happened without me like really putting thought into it. But like, yeah, I realized like, oh shit, that's part of how I see myself, right? And so it's removed a lot of the things on my radar because they're outside of the scope of what that identity is. And so aspiring game dev, I think, puts you out. It can take some things off your radar that are for real game devs, real game devs, right? When you get an opportunity, you're like, oh, that's a big opportunity. I don't know if that's something I can handle, right? Maybe you should go find somebody with more experience or whatever. That kind of thing can happen. It's happened to me, right? Where like, I don't think that I'm ready for certain things. And I think those opportunities, the ones that are slightly bigger than you can handle, I think are extremely important to growth because that's where you figure out what you can handle. That's where you figure out what you actually can handle, which is, spoiler alert, usually a lot more than you think you can, right? My brother and I were talking about going to the gym, and it's funny how like when you're on the treadmill or you're on the stair stepper machine or whatever, and like you think you're done, you think there's no way you could possibly go for another minute, but then you do. And then it's 2 minutes, and then it's 5 minutes. And then before you know it, it's actually easier than it was before. And you realize what a limiting factor your brain is, not your actual body, right? It's not an actual physical limit. It's a self-imposed mental limit. And it may feel like everything's going crazy, right? But it's not an actual limit. It's fake. It's not real. Aspiring game dev does that. It puts this wall in between you and opportunities because those opportunities are for people better qualified than you. And the problem is that may not be true, right? That may be the perfect opportunity for you, but because you see yourself as an aspiring game dev and not a real game dev, not an actual game dev, I think it can stop you from getting those things. That being said, one of the things that I've tried to do If you're not part of our Discord, I highly recommend you join the Game Dev Underground Discord. We help thousands of game developers from all around the globe build, finish, and launch better games. If you've ever finished a game jam game, little prototype, whatever, and you've released it, on our Discord, you get a role that's hashtag finished it. And you get access to a custom chat room specifically for people that have finished projects. Now, why would I do that on finishing a game? Why wouldn't I just label everybody as game devs if they're working on a game? Because that's what I think. If you're working on a game, you're a game dev. If you're working on a book, you're a writer, right? If you're working on a song, you're a musician. Simple as that, straight up. But I think there's also this mental process that comes along with the ritual of things, right? Like if you look at the way that some tribes operate, like when you turn 16, you have to go out and do this thing and like kill a tiger or whatever. And then you bring back the head and then now suddenly you're a man, right? That whole ritual, the act of doing something and becoming the thing. What games do very, very well, you have to go get to level 20, right? You have to achieve that and then you become legend. You've given access to the rest of the stuff, right? There's a certain emotional impact that you get from doing a thing and achieving a thing and earning it, right? And so my goal with this whole Discord thing, giving people the finished it role, is to lean into that ritual and say, hey, you achieved a thing. You did a thing. You are now official as a whistle, right? Because I think that's important. I think our society has lost some of that with how globally connected we are. We're more connected than ever before, but we're more alone than ever before. And I think we need, sometimes we need that external validation and that permission from people outside ourselves to take it seriously. And that's kind of what I want to do with this. So that's all I got for you. You are not an aspiring game dev. You're a game dev. If you touched a line of code, you're an artist. If you've messed with some pixels, you're a musician. If you made some music, if you're making music, right? Don't let it get to you. Don't let it hold you back. Don't think that you're not real. That sounded weirder than it did in my head. Don't think that you're not a real game dev or musician or artist or whatever it is. And don't let your identity hold you back from opportunities that are outside of your current lens, right? My name is Tim Roswick, and I want to say thank you to all the patrons, all the beautiful people that help me keep doing what I'm doing. If you want to join Game Dev Underground Elite, there's a bunch of different perks. I recommend you check out the link down below, patreon.com/GameDevUnderground. There's lots of stuff that you can earn, help you build, finish, and launch better games. We would love to have you. If you join Patreon at any level, you get access to a special Discord role as well. And we have a cool little chat room that you can talk to where people that are serious about success and game dev all chat and share ideas. I hope you join me. Either way, thank you for watching this video. Thank you for being a part of Game Dev Underground. I appreciate every single one of you. My name is Tim Roswick, and I will see you again next video.